Yeah, you guys read that title right. We're running back a video from 2 years ago. I'm officially a washed up has-been baseball YouTuber. This time of year always has me digging through Baseball Reference to look back at all the weird all-stars of years past. You've got your Santiago Espinals, your Jordan Waldens, your Brian LaHares. Okay, 50% of my viewers have probably clicked off the video by now. Who am I kidding? You guys are all still here. But to be a truly weird all-star could mean a whole lot of different things. Maybe a player benefited from one stat that probably shouldn't have mattered. Maybe a guy got hurt the day before the game itself and a new player got thrust onto the roster. Maybe a player was literally in the stands at the game and got pulled onto the field out of necessity. That last one isn't even a joke. Either way, here are the weirdest all-stars in MLB history, part 2. We'll start off today's list with a fan favorite and 6-time All-Star. Back in the early 1990s, there were few baseball players as popular as catcher Sandy Alomar. After winning Minor League Player of the Year in consecutive seasons as the top catching prospect in baseball, Alomar was traded to Cleveland for Joe Carter, and he'd spend the next 11 years of his career with that organization. Alomar took the league by storm, unanimously winning AL Rookie of the Year in 1990 alongside a Gold Glove Award, leading all catchers with a .290 batting average that year. He'd make the All-Star game that season unsurprisingly, becoming the first rookie catcher ever to start the All-Star game. But we won't be talking about his first-year campaign. Instead, his weird All-Star nod came in his sophomore season that followed. Alomar has been a part of famous All-Star game history, most notably hitting a game-winning 2-run homer in the 1997 All-Star game, which took place in his home team's town of Cleveland. But his 1991 All-Star nod is one that has reasonably gone forgotten because it's one of the worst All-Star seasons in baseball history, no hyperbole. In spring training before the season began, Alomar arrived at camp 10 to 15 pounds overweight, and this began a vicious injury cycle that plagued his second full season in the show. Alomar even admitted that it was a lesson learned. He was sidelined with a sore rotator cuff in his throwing shoulder in early May and missed the final 2 months of the season with a strained right hip. When he was on the field, he was a far cry from the defensive whiz of his rookie season, unable to properly field his catching position. At the plate, he wasn't much better. Alomar didn't hit a single home run in the 51 games he played in 1991, finishing with an OPS over 50% worse than league average, thanks to an on-base and slugging clip that were both below 300. By the end of the first half, Alomar ranked in the bottom 10 of the American League for OPS, an unbelievable drop-off from his rookie season. But the Cleveland faithful, who watched the Indians stumble through an 105-loss season, were ever supportive of their young catcher, garnering enough votes to still send him to that year's All-Star game as the starting catcher. It was definitely a cool moment in the baseball world to see Sandy Alomar and Roberto Alomar both in the American League All-Star lineup, but if I was Tony La Russa, I probably would have switched them in the order that season. Announcer Jack Buck nailed the situation on his call of the game when Alomar first stepped up to the plate.
1 ball, 1 strike to Sandy. He doesn't really have all-star stats. No home runs, 4 RBIs, hitting .241, but the fans like him, so here he is.
Alomar would miss the rest of the season with the aforementioned hip injury and returned to form in the seasons that followed, slowly becoming the clubhouse leader in the Indians organization. And he went on to become a 6-time All-Star, with his other 5 nods feeling a lot more deserving. He's still with the organization too, serving as the bench coach of the Guardians since 2011. While Alomar is a fan favorite, up next is the most notable player on the list, and that's former MVP winner Jason Giambi. The hulking first baseman made 5 All-Star games in his career, all of them coming in a consecutive stretch from 2000 to 2004. In the first 4 of those seasons, Giambi walked 100 times or more in each campaign, hit 40 home runs or more in 3 of the 4, posted an 1,000 OPS or better in 3 of the 4, and posted 7 WAR or more in 3 of the 4. Simply put, he was at the top of his game in the early 2000s, like many other players were at the top of their game in the early 2000s. Something's going on here. However, in a season when he wouldn't even make the Yankees postseason roster at year's end, Giambi still ended up the starting first baseman at the midseason festivities. This was especially surprising considering that Giambi had been named as a possible steroid user the offseason prior through an FBI investigation, though this accusation wouldn't be confirmed until after the 2004 season. It's safe to say that Giambi was off the juice in the 2004 campaign itself. While also dealing with a benign tumor that sidelined him for 6 weeks in the summer, Giambi posted easily the worst numbers of his career to that point. He hit less than 20 home runs in a season for the first time since 1996, which which was his first full season as a big leaguer. He saw his OPS dip over 200 points from the mark he set the year prior. Still, the fans had his back, voting him into the 2004 All-Star game as the starting first baseman. Giambi would finish that season with just 80 games played, becoming one of the very few All-Stars in MLB history to finish an All-Star season with negative wins above replacement. The 2004 All-Star game was won by the American League, like most All-Star games, but if we fast forward just 7 years to 2011, we could look at the second of 3 victories in a row for the National League, before they would go on to lose 10 more in a row after that. They did it with the help of a ferocious pitching staff that year, including the likes of a prime Tim Lincecum, an ascending Clayton Kershaw, and Kevin Correia. Who? Correia is a 13-year MLB veteran with nearly 1,500 innings pitched in the show, which is nothing to scoff at. He had some pretty decent campaigns, but was recognized mostly as a rotation anchor, a guy that could take the ball every 5th day and give you some innings. There's definitely value in that, but not quite all-star value most of the time. I say most, not all of the time, because his 2011 season became a rare exception. Over the full season, Correia was worth just 0.1 wins above replacement and finished the season with an ERA over 20% worse than league average by ERA+. He pounded the strike zone and pitched to contact, and boy, did he get a lot of contact. His 1.4 home run per 9 rate was 5th worst among all pitchers that season with at least 150 innings pitched, with his 10.2 hit per 9 rate also ranking in the bottom 10. In fact, he's one of just 16 pitchers in the expansion era dating back to 1961 to make an all-star team with a hit per 9 rate this high. Correia was filling the zone and going after hitters, but he also wasn't really getting the strikeouts that usually come with that approach, being that he had the 4th lowest strikeout percentage in baseball that season of qualified starting pitchers. Like most players we talk about in these all-star videos, Kevin Correia was an all-star product thanks to a much better first half compared to second half, especially considering he had just made 7 starts beyond the mid-season break due to an oblique injury. But when we look at the first half stats, they're mostly lukewarm. 20 starts, an ERA near 4, nothing really to write home about. So the guy's getting hit really hard, he's not striking out anybody, his ERA is nothing to write home about. Holy shit, does that say 11 wins?
Paul Skeens, take notes.
Fate of the universe on the line, or the Martians have the death beam pointed at Earth. You better hit it. I want Correia!
This was the era in which the baseball world was still very much infatuated with the concept of pitcher wins. Hell, I was too that season because at 12 years old, it was one of the first stats I learned about, and I used it to judge a bunch of starting pitchers like everyone else. Correia's 11 wins in the first half was tied for 4th most in baseball and 2nd most in the National League, trailing only Jair Jurgens of the Atlanta Braves. But just by simply looking at the ERA marks next to all these top win leaders, it's easy to see which one doesn't exactly fit in. Still, Kevin Correia would get the nod for the All-Star game alongside 2 of his Pirates teammates in Joel Hanrahan and Andrew McCutchen. Unfortunately, Correia would not appear in the game itself, and beyond this odd selection, he pitched 4 more seasons in the show before retiring after 2015. Before we get on with today's content, I gotta thank Moomoo for sponsoring today's video. Today's sponsor, Moomoo, is giving you 2 free sweet tickets to a Mets game of your choice, and all you have to do is make a qualified deposit. Every time I go to Citi Field, I see Moomoo everywhere, but in case you haven't seen their orange mascot creeping behind home plate in the 9th inning of every home game, I'm here to tell you that Moomoo is the proud trading partner of the New York Mets. They're a global trading platform with over 26 million users worldwide, and to help celebrate their new partnership with the New York Mets, they have some incredible offers for my community. You can get free tickets to every Monday home game at Citi Field. All you need to do is just show the Moomoo app on your phone to the ticket attendee. Plus, Moomoo is giving away a ton of money for every Mets win milestone. 50 wins means $20,000, 75 wins means $30,000, and 100 wins means $1 million for one Moomoo user. And if that wasn't enough, Moomoo customers can receive up to 60 free stocks and 2 Mets Suite tickets with a qualified deposit today. So go to start.moomoo.com/jolly today, scan the QR code on the screen, or click the link in the description to get started with Moomoo right now and take advantage of these awesome offers. In comparison to being a starting pitcher, I feel like it's tougher to crack an all-star roster if you're not an established relief pitcher. Especially in the entire 2000s, there would basically be built-in reserved spots for the likes of Mariano Rivera, Trevor Hoffman, K-Rod, Billy Wagner, Jonathan Papelbon. You get the idea. To make it in as a reliever, especially in the entire 2000s decade, you'd basically have to be perfect, right? Well, no, not exactly. That's right, baby. We got some more counting stats bullshit coming. In 2008, left-hander George Sherrill was more known for his flat-brimmed cap, which was a big deal back then for some reason, more so than his closing abilities. After a strong 2007 campaign, he was packaged in an off-season trade from Seattle to Baltimore. This was quite the haul for the Orioles, as they'd not only received Sherrill, but also starting pitcher Chris Tillman, who made over 200 starts and pitched 10 years in Baltimore, and more notably, outfielder Adam Jones, who became a 5-time All-Star and hit over 250 home runs as a member of the Orioles for 11 seasons. The Eric Bedard trade has to be one of the best trades in Orioles history, and it's just another day at the office for the 2000s Mariners. They did stuff like this every week. A year after pitching to a 2.36 ERA for Seattle, George Sherrill was handed the keys to the closer job in Baltimore in 2008. The southpaw didn't exactly throw hard, but he featured a wipeout slider that tormented left-handed batters. But without an effective changeup, Sherrill got torched by right-handed hitters for his entire stay as a big league reliever. But early on in 2008, it didn't seem to matter. Baltimore won 6 of their first 7 games, and Sherrill locked up 4 saves in that window to storm out to the league lead. While Francisco Rodriguez would take over that lead in his record-setting season, Sherrill didn't fall too far behind. By the end of the first half, he had secured 28 saves, which was second in all of baseball and right up there with the likes of Jonathan Papelbon and Joe Nathan. However, Sherrill was hardly a lockdown closer in comparison to the others. Despite having 2 separate months with 9 or more saves, Sherrill had 6 blown saves in the first half alone, and surrendered runs in 4 of the saves that he actually managed to secure. But similar to wins, the peripheral stats didn't matter as much as the sheer amount of saves, and Sherrill was able to crack the 2008 All-Star roster as the lone representative of the Baltimore Orioles. Him being the lone representative is just as crazy as him making it in the first place, because some of his teammates were having great seasons. You have Nick Markakis, who had a 7-WAR year and wouldn't make his first All-Star team until 10 years later, not to mention Brian Roberts ended the year with 50 doubles and 40 stolen bases. Neither of those guys made it. Unlike Kevin Correia though, George Sherrill did get into this game because every pitcher got into this game. This was the 15-inning 2008 All-Star game at Old Yankee Stadium, and Sherrill became the bulk guy late, pitching 2 1/3 innings with 1 base runner allowed and 2 strikeouts in what was admittedly the best performance of the night for an AL pitcher. Sherrill would continue closing games into the next season where he performed far better, to the tune of a 1.70 ERA in 69 innings, yet he'd get no All-Star nod to show for himself in 2009. Funny how that works. Our final entry takes us back 40 years from today's date, and I feel comfortable calling this player the weirdest All-Star selection in MLB history. Back in the day, if you were named to the MLB All-Star game, you were allowed to bring a guest with you, courtesy of MLB. They'd cover costs and expenses and all that. Most players would probably bring their girlfriend or their wife, but some players would just bring a teammate. After hitting over 300 in the first half, Blue Jays second baseman Damaso Garcia earned All-Star honors for the first time in his career. But this chapter of the video is not actually about him. It's about the man he brought with him to the 1984 All-Star game, which was his double play partner, shortstop Alfredo Griffin. Griffin played in the major leagues for 18 years, a length of time that most MLB players can't say they've hung around for. He was a sure-handed shortstop who stole nearly 200 bases in his career. He actually won Rookie of the Year in 1979 as well, but at no point did he manage offensive numbers above league average, much like his double play partner Damaso Garcia. What makes his 1984 All-Star appearance funny is that it was easily one of the worst seasons of his entire career. By all accounts, Griffin was a negative asset player, and Toronto would actually trade him away that offseason. The thing that separates Alfredo Griffin from our previous 4 players is that he actually was never selected as an All-Star. Fellow shortstop Alan Trammell, who was the reserve behind Cal Ripken Jr., hurt his throwing arm in pregame warmups. Unable to play, manager Joe Altobelli needed to somehow find a roster replacement hours before the game and only needed to look as far as the front row of the stands. In the blink of an eye, Alfredo Griffin was an All-Star. He would replace Cal Ripken Jr. in the 6th inning and got to make a play on an Ozzie Smith fielder's choice ground out, and boy, did this middle infield tandem look really good doing it. With over 1,500 hits, nearly 2,000 games played, a Gold Glove, and a Rookie of the Year award, this random All-Star nod was a nice cherry on top to a very respectable career for Alfredo Griffin. And that'll do it for the second edition of the weirdest All-Stars in MLB history. If I snubbed your favorite pick, leave a comment down below, and who knows, we might do a part 3 this time next year. If you watched this video all the way to the end, thank you very much. Please leave a like on the video and consider subscribing if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time.